Welcome, everybody, to the Mana Vault podcast, where we tap for 3, put our magic opinions on the table, and you decide if it's worth it to take 1 damage on your upkeep. This is episode 3. I'm your host. My name is JC, and as usual, I have Arven as a co-host.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast here. And just so you are aware, if you want to support the show, we are on Patreon. It's patreon.com/themanavaultyt. And if you didn't know, me and some of the crew here at the Mana Vault are going to be going to MTG Las Vegas. So if you want to say hi to us and if you are there, we'll be more than happy to shake your hand, sign a card if you want your card devalued immensely.
Yep, exactly.
And with that being said, let's get into what card do?
Yeah, we're getting to our opening segment. Today we're going to be talking about Yorion Sky Nomad. So this is one of the companions from Ikoria and has been popping up a little bit more as time goes on. It's seen a little bit of play in various decks, but lately has been hitting some of the meta decks as a companion and making people want to play 80-card main boards.
Yeah, if you told me a few years ago that I'd be going to Vegas with 95 cards, I would have probably hit you.
Yeah, but here we are.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what this card does. Yorion Sky Nomad is 3 and 2 Azorius hybrid, so white or blue, for a legendary creature, Bird Serpent. It is a 4/5. Has companion. The companion requirement is your deck must contain at least 20 cards more than the minimum deck size. So in 60-card formats, that would be 80 cards. And in Commander, don't worry about it because you have to be at exactly 100. Yep. It doesn't really function in non-60-card formats. So ultimately, this is at least 80 cards in your deck.
Yeah.
Has flying. And when it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control. Return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step.
Which is really sweet. There's been a lot of different modern decks to take this into account. Most recently, there's these 4-color blink decks that play Omnath and a bunch of enchantments that enter the battlefield and draw you cards.
Yep. For a while, the 5-color Niv to Light decks were playing this as a companion.
And it kind of just transitioned into this because there's just better things to do with the new elementals that we got with like Fury, Solitude, Subtlety. They're just really good to blink.
Yep, turns out. And even blinking some of your Planeswalkers to reset their loyalty. In Standard, you would blink things like the Omens, Omen of the Sea, Omen of the Sun to get extra value off of their Enter the Battlefield effects. This is really good with a lot of ETB creatures in the blink deck, like you said. Eternal Witness.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one. So like, we do have quite a few comparison to this. The most noteworthy is Lurrus.
Yep.
And the other one being Kahira. The other two don't really see much as play. So the reason I like this one personally more than Lurrus, so Lurrus kind of just stays even. You know what you're going to expect. You know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
With this one, its floor is really low because you can randomly just lose to variants. You're playing with 80 cards.
Having nothing in play that has a Enter the Battlefield effect. Having nothing in play at all other than lands and okay, I have a 4/5 flyer for 5. That's it.
But Lurrus will always keep, playing cards at your graveyard. But this thing's ceiling, oh my gosh, this thing's ceiling is really high. And you could potentially just go nuts. You can have like 7 things in play that draw you cards when they ETB. And you just play this 5-mana card that leaves a body behind and draw 7 cards.
Yeah, Lurrus lets you play 1 card out of your graveyard each turn, whereas Yorion lets you flicker any number of non-land permanents, and being able to flicker like a Fury and a Solitude, get rid of maybe 3 creatures and just go, okay, or 2 creatures and a Planeswalker. It's like, all right, yep, I did the thing. Also, I have 3 bodies again now, and they're untapped in case you have any creatures left, so they can block, that kind of thing. And it's just very powerful.
It's relevant that this thing flies. Don't get me wrong, Lurrus's power does have lifelink, but this thing's just outclasses it.
And we don't talk about this a lot, but Lurrus's requirement of everything, all the permanents in your deck costing 2 or less, actually can be a downside sometimes. There are a lot of things you have to say no to in deck building, and Yorion doesn't. Yorion certainly has a little bit of a downside in that you have to have a bigger deck, which leads to less inconsistency in drawing specific cards, but the upside is so high that this is absolutely worth it for certain decks, at least.
Oh, I don't disagree. Like I said, if you told me I was going to take 80 cards to Vegas, I would have thought you were crazy.
No, but Yorion totally makes it worth it.
And with that being said, let's go into our main topic. And with this main topic, we are going to mention some really good cards, some really good cards that we like with the new set, Innistrad Crimson Vow.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Like you said, there will be other podcasts.
This is not an extensive set review. We're just going to talk about cards we like. There's other podcasts out there that'll do all the cards, and you can go check those out. There's articles out there, that kind of thing. But we just want to talk about what excites us. And we're going to start with the lands.
Yeah.
Because thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for finishing a land cycle, a dual land cycle in back-to-back sets.
Yeah.
So there are 5 lands in the... Well, there's 7 non-basic lands in this set. One is Evolving Wilds. That's a reprint.
Yep.
I've seen it before. There's a land that cares about vampires, lets you get mana of any color to cast vampires and pay 5 to make a blood token. Not really going to talk about that, but the other 5 are Shattered Sanctum, Dreamroot Cascade, Deathcap Glade, Sundown Pass, and Storm Carved Coast. So these are the... I don't know what the nickname for these is yet.
I think they're called the Slow Lands.
The Slow Lands.
They're versions of the Fast Lands.
Opposite of the Fast Lands. Yeah, they enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, and they tap for 1 of 2 colors. This is the enemy cycle, so we've got black-white, we've got green-blue, we've got black-green, we've got red-white, and we've got blue-red.
Yeah. Which... I like them, I really do, especially in Standard, where it's, a fairly slower-ish format. I don't think they'll see much playouts in, like, Modern or anything like that.
I've seen a couple see play in, like, blue-white control decks and stuff, because you're going long enough in that deck.
Right.
But, yeah, like you said, more Modern decks are going to play Fast Lands. Fast Lands even see play in some Legacy decks, so more likely you're caring about the first 3 lands that you play in that deck and not so much the next 5 or whatever it might be over the course of a long game. They'll be really good in Commander.
Sure. No,
especially
absolutely.
Because you can only play 1 of everything, but...
Absolutely. And, like, they're pretty self-explanatory. If you want to check them out, you're more than welcome to. But with that being said, what's our next card, JC?
All right, so let's talk about Planeswalkers. We got 3 in this set. We've got Sorin the Mirthless. We've got Chandra Dressed to Kill, and Kaya Geist Hunter.
I see. So, I'm going to be honest. One I'm excited about. One is kind of cool, and one is like, you exist.
Yep.
I acknowledge that you're there.
Sorin is pretty exciting to me. It's not like bonkers. We've seen bonkers Planeswalkers before. Shout out to 2019. But this is not a broken Planeswalker. It's just very powerful. Sorin is 2 black for a 4 loyalty legendary Planeswalker, Sorin. Look, +1, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card and put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. We call that bobbing after Bob, the Dark Confidant, who originally did this effect.
And what's its -2?
-2, create a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. It's almost a Vampire Nighthawk. Almost. No death touch, though.
No.
And -7, Sorin the Mirthless deals 13 damage to any target. You gain 13 life.
So, I'm going to be honest, I like this card. I think it's sweet. So, I know you're not supposed to judge a Planeswalker by its all, blah, blah, blah. But that ult is very underwhelming.
Yeah, I completely agree. However, I think that the combination of the +1 and the -2, like, drawing extra cards... So, we got a card advantage engine in mono black, and we have a creature token engine in mono black as well. I'm in for this card just for those 2 abilities, and if... the value over time doesn't get my opponent down to 13 or less, then okay, fine. But if it does, well, the ultimate will finish them off.
No, absolutely. And the next card we have is Chandra. Chandra's one of those ones that is pretty sweet. It's cool. I don't think it's really going anywhere, but
we've seen these kind of abilities before. Chandra Dressed to Kill is 1 red for a Chandra Planeswalker at 3 loyalty. +1, add red, deals 1 damage to up to 1 target player or Planeswalker, notably not creature.
Yeah.
The other +1 is exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. And then exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may cast red spells from among them this turn. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a red spell. This emblem deals X damage to any target, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast the spell from -7.
So, I like this Chandra. It's sweet. It can't protect itself.
No.
There's no real way. Like you said, the +1 doesn't deal damage
doesn't interact with creatures, yeah.
And that's pretty devastating for Chandra.
I do feel like this one will see some standard play in some kind of red deck, but yeah, not being able to protect herself is kind of a big deal. I'm not unimpressed. I just like we've seen abilities like this before. The emblem is cool, but you have to get there and she doesn't protect herself. So I'm kind of just over Chandra. Like,
I don't disagree.
could we get a new mono red planeswalker?
I don't disagree. Don't get me wrong, Chandra's cool, it's sweet, but emblem, like I said, it's not supposed to be what defines the planeswalker, and that one is just
That's all we really
it's
care
very
about.
lackluster.
Yeah, the other abilities are okay, but
Yeah.
you have to have something else to get her going.
And the last one is Kaya. So, man, I am not a fan of this Kaya. There's just better ones. This one is just bleh.
She does some cool things, but just not enough to make her relevant in most board states, unless you're already winning. So Kaya Geist Hunter is 1 white-black for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. +1, creatures you control gain death touch until end turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control.
Which is
Yeah, if it said creature, that'd be pretty okay.
Yeah.
-2 until end of turn if 1 or more tokens will be created under your control. Twice that many of those tokens are created instead. That's not bad, but again, you have to do something else on top of that. And then -6, exile all cards from all graveyards, then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. That's not bad.
But this Kaya requires setup, and
Yeah.
I don't think for a planeswalker you really want this. I understand you do need setup, but you don't want to do extra things because it's a planeswalker. You're trying to get this thing to play and hopefully try to win the game with it.
Yeah.
This one requires a lot of setup that you don't really want to do, and there's just better things to do.
Yeah, I just don't see where this is going to see play. Maybe we're undervaluing this planeswalker, but honestly, she's just unimpressive for a planeswalker. But we'll move on. We're going to talk about a legendary slug, because who doesn't love slugs? Toxrill, the Corrosive, is 5 black, 7 mana, for a legendary creature Slug Horror. It's a 7/7. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token.
Slugs.
And blue and a black, sacrifice a slug, draw a card.
This card is so sweet. I love this card.
This is bonkers.
It's for 7 mana and commander, you're in 2 colors.
Yep.
It actually ties in with a different card from the previous set.
Yeah, if anybody forgot about Sludge Monster from Midnight Hunt, that's okay. We're here to remind you. Sludge Monster is 3 blue for a creature horror. It's a 5/5. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a slime counter on up to 1 other target creature. Notably, slime counters for both of them.
Yeah.
Non-horror creatures with slime counters on them lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 2/2.
So if your opponent randomly has an Ulamog in play and it has 1 slime counter and this thing puts another one on it, it just dies.
It just dies immediately because it will have 2, and the Sludge Monster makes its base power toughness 2/2 and makes it lose all abilities. And Toxrill, wow, I can't
think
say
that's
that
how you
name.
pronounce it.
Toxrill.
Yeah.
Says that it gets -1/-1 for each slime counter on it. So if you can get both of these into play, your opponent's boards are gone 2 turns.
They're
later.
just gone.
Yep.
And it's
Bye.
pretty sweet. Also, if they have stuff with relevant abilities, trample, indestructible,
Not
warn,
anymore.
whatever it is. Yeah, no, those
Yep,
just
they lose their
disappear.
abilities, so that's huge.
I think they're sweet. I think these cards are really sweet. I think people will try to break them. Probably not in standard because it's a lot of mana.
It's a fun combo for Commander, though.
yeah.
And this is just a sweet Commander.
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Absolutely.
just giving, like, a big idiot that gives your opponent's board -1/-1 essentially counters and draws you cards off the tokens it makes. It's very synergistic, and I love it.
What's the next card?
All right, so we've got a cycle next. We skipped over one of them because it just wasn't that appealing.
Yeah.
But we've got the Cemetery cycle. So we're going to talk about Cemetery Protector, Illuminator, Gatekeeper, and Prowler. All of these cards, at least when they enter the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. A couple of them also say that they exile when they attack.
And the only one that says whenever it dies is the black one, but that one's not very
Cemetery, what is it? Desecrator?
Yeah.
It's 6 mana for a 4/4 menace. It does some cool things. It's either remove X counters from target permanent or target creature gets -X/-X, where X is the mana value of the exiled card,
But for 6 mana, it's not worth it.
no, I'd rather be doing other things for 6 mana. I'd rather be destroying the whole board for 6 mana.
What's the white one do?
Well, let's start with Cemetery Protector. 2 white for a 3/4 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, you create a 1/1 white human creature token.
That card is so sweet. So what I think is kind of interesting, it says whenever you play a land or cast a spell.
Yep.
That's really interesting because you can, let's just say you play this in standard, right? What are people going to be playing mostly in standard? Creatures.
A lot of creatures.
If you exile a creature, you can just randomly start making an army.
All of your creatures just coming with an extra 1/1. I'm thumbs up in for that.
Oh, yeah.
In Commander, I definitely want to exile a Dryad Arbor with this so that it's whenever you play a land or play a creature.
Oh,
Yep.
that seems so
Into
sweet.
it. Into it. This card's sweet. Really good for white mid-range decks. That's where I want to see this. Cemetery Illuminator is 1 blue for a 2/3 with flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. That's just always true.
Yep.
And once each turn, you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled with Cemetery Illuminator.
This card is sweet. Oh,
Yep.
I like this card.
If you're not familiar with an enchantment called Future Sight, very old school enchantment, but it's 2 and triple blue for an enchantment that says you play with the top card of your library revealed, and you may play the top card of your library.
This isn't the same thing, but
Not
it kind
quite.
of feels like it, because if you're, let's just say, like a blue spell slinger style
Yep.
deck, if you have nothing but instant or sorceries and you exile one of those, you can just keep playing until the cows come home. You
Yep.
just keep going.
Notably, this one won't let you play lands at any time.
Yes.
Even if you exile one, but putting it on a 2/3 flying body for 3, I'm kind of okay with that.
Oh, I don't disagree. So I don't think it has any place in Modern, but Standard and Commander,
Yeah.
we'll see play.
Yep. It's also a spirit.
It is.
That is worth mentioning.
Mhm.
Okay. Speaking of relevant creature types, we've got Cemetery Gatekeeper, which is 1 in red for a vampire. It's 2/1 with first strike. I like those stats.
I do too.
When Cemetery Gatekeeper enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell that shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player.
Hey, how do you feel about Eidolon of the Great Rebel?
I hate that card with a passion.
It doesn't seem like it is, but if you're playing against... So this card is very, very close for Modern play.
Yep.
If you're playing against like a Lurrus style deck and you exile a creature, they're playing like Ragavans and Darcy's. They're taking 2 every time they play those out of the graveyard or from their hand, which is a lot.
One of the things we've been having side discussions about is that Vampires with this set is getting really close to being a modern playable tribal deck. And this is certainly a role player in that. I also think that like Zoo decks could potentially play this.
Yeah.
Just a decent body. Like it's not a great body, but it's a decent body.
The first strike helps.
First strike helps. And yeah, just like pinging, like it pings both players, but you're the aggressive deck, so you're not going to care. And then we have Cemetery Prowler.
I like this one.
Yeah, 1 green for a wolf 3/4. It's a okay. What's with these 1 green 3/4 bodies with a keyword? This one is vigilance.
The last one I can remember, it's not really similar.
Endurance.
Yeah.
Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Shocking. Spells you cast cost 1 less for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler.
See, that's the thing. Is whenever it enters, and if this thing attacks like 3-4 times, you can have every single card type exiled.
Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Yeah, which is insane.
Totally okay with that. I don't know that there's a deck in Modern that would want this, just because a lot of the decks that would kind of want this thing also want to play cards like Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
So you're kind of eating away at your Tarmogoyf, which cares about card types in graveyards, but it's still pretty cool and certainly going to see some play in Standard and in Commander. So
it's one of those cards where like it's a 3-mana 3/4 on just face value.
Yeah.
It's good enough with
I guess if you
vigilance.
want to go like a green, like a mono green stompy, this would be pretty okay.
You make your stuff
It's
cheaper.
pretty big.
okay.
Yeah, make your creatures cheaper. All right, let's talk about zombies.
I like this next card.
All right, Graph Reaver is 1 in a black for a zombie warrior. It's a 3/3. It has exploit, so when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. When it exploits a creature, destroy target planeswalker. And at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you.
So that's the thing. At worst, it's a 2-mana destroy target planeswalker at sorcery speed. At best, it's a 2-mana 3/3 that blow up a planeswalker.
Yep.
So I really, really like this card. It kind of reminds me nowhere near the same or as power level, but I don't know why, but every time I look at this card, it reminds me of Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when I played that card, I just removed a planeswalker that I can't deal with. And sure, you give them a land. In this case, you take 1 damage. But if you're playing this card, it seems like you're playing an aggressive deck.
Yeah. One of the things that stands out to me is that it's a 2-drop, and zombies, I think that's the number that they really need to become a good tribal deck is 2-drops. And this is the kind of 2-drop I want to play, because even if you just play as a 3/3, okay, it's a big body that attacks your opponent. And if you also have the utility of being able to hit planeswalkers, which black can do for sure, but maybe not on a zombie body, and now it can.
Now it can. So it kind of ties into our next card, which I'm a big fan of. Is Headless Rider.
Headless Rider.
Ooh.
2 and a black for a zombie, 3/1. When it or another non-token zombie you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Not with Decayed.
Yeah, so it just sticks around. And if you play the other zombie before this, you just kind of get rid of a planeswalker. And if you sacrifice the zombie you played, you just make another 2/2 body.
Well, even if you play the Graph Reaver right after and sack it to itself, okay, you still get a 2/2.
Which is phenomenal. And also, this is very close to making zombies playable in Modern. Maybe not good, but playable.
I think zombies might need like 1 more Lord, because we did get a Lord in the last set.
We did.
1 more Lord that like cost 2 or 3 mana, and then maybe more cards like this, or cards that drain, another card that drains your opponent when zombies come into play or die. That's where we want to be.
Oh, absolutely.
One last zombie to talk about is Patchwork Crawler.
Yeah.
So 1 and a blue for a 1/2, zombie horror. 2 and a blue, exile target creature card from your graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Crawler. Patchwork Crawler has all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with it.
Oh god, that's so good.
So again, talking about 2-drop zombies, and zombies that do something that maybe that deck didn't have before. And in this case, it's, okay, I'll get these zombies that have random activated abilities, and if I can't get them back from the graveyard, which zombies is usually pretty good at, I will still, get something out of this deal and make this zombie bigger and stuff like that. Also, in some blue decks in Commander, this is just going to be totally fine as stealing activated abilities from your creatures that already went away.
So this has nothing to do with the card, but if you ever look at the art on this thing, oh my god, it's creepy.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this art, I mean, it is a zombie horror. It's supposed to be horrible.
But like, that was
yeah,
fine.
no.
But it's just creepy. It's like a flesh thing that's. Anyway, moving on.
And we'll move on. All right. Hallowed Haunting. I really want to talk about this card. So, Hallowed Haunting is 2 white for an enchantment. As long as you control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of spirits you control. So, the reason I'm looking at this card is because I want to compare it to another card that exists in Modern and in Legacy and in Commander that's called Sigil of the Empty Throne.
Yeah.
Which is 3 and a white. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you create a 4/4 angel with flying. So these tokens don't have flying, although they may eventually, if you get up to enough enchantments. This costs 1 less, and the tokens eventually get bigger.
So this is a weird one, right? Where in the long game, this card is insane because you can randomly have 7 of them, and you have 7 7s.
Yep.
And potentially will have flying at that point.
Yep.
On face value, I think people will like Sigil better.
Yeah.
But if they're trying to play the long game, I think this card is just much better.
I think I'm evaluating this the way we compared Yorion to Lurrus, which is this card has a higher ceiling, lower floor, and the fail case or the average case on Sigil is just a lot better. So
Sure. No, I agree. I totally agree.
I certainly intend to play this in Commander Enchantress. All right. Jacob Halkin, Inspector, is 1 and a blue for a 0/2 legendary creature, human advisor. Ooh, he's an advisor.
He's an advisor.
Ooh.
Oh, that's sweet.
Persistent petitioners. All right. Tap, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 4 blue as part of resolving this ability. If you do, transform him, and he becomes Hawkins' Insight. a legendary enchantment that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at it as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost.
So what happens if you hit something that's enormous?
Like an Omniscience.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to hit an Omniscience, and I want to play it for free and then cast everything for free. It's really great. This, I don't think this is certainly not gonna see any play in Modern. I think it would take a janky standard deck to play this. Honestly, where I see this seeing play is Commander, but it's going to be sweet in Commander, so keep an eye out for it.
This thing will kill people randomly because you can hit big dumb things in that format.
Yep. Hitting extra turn spells is going to be what people are going to think about. Yep.
Yeah.
Time stretch, expropriate. God. Yeah. That's what I'm really worried about. Also, Eldrazi, obviously.
Yeah, I'm getting a bad taste in my mouth.
All right. I'm really excited for this card. Avabrook Caretaker.
Right.
Yep. So this is 4 green for a mythic 4/4 human werewolf. It has hexproof. I'm already good.
Sure, why not?
But at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. Okay, if this was where the card stopped, I'm happy.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
totally
it's not. It keeps going.
Because it has Daybound, and on the Nightbound side, it is Hallowed Huntmaster, which is a werewolf. It's a 6/6, still has hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control.
So for some reason, I don't know why, but I'm getting like Big Avacyn vibes, where it gives Indestructible, it has Indestructible, but making your stuff bigger and hexproofy, that's gross. Yeah, it's really, really gross.
Yeah, I am going to play this card in Commander. I'm sure it will see some play in like big green decks in Standard as well. And boy, do I not look forward to seeing it across the table.
No. The one thing is, I don't think it's good enough in Modern. For 6 mana, there's just better things to do.
Nope. It's a really cool creature, but at 6 mana, you should be playing Primetime.
Oh, yeah. That's
pretty much what it is.
In your green, yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Let's do Maniform Hellkite, which is 2 red for a 4/4 with flying. It's a dragon. Love dragons.
Me too.
Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX red dragon illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step.
Oh, man.
I want to play this in a blue-red Spellslinger deck and go, okay, I'm just going to play cantrips to get 1/1s and attack you with them. I want to play the occasional lightning strike or whatever 2-mana burn spell to deal 3 damage to something and hit you with a 2/2. That's exactly where I see the seeing play. This is going to be a standard all-star for sure.
I agree. So also what I kind of see it as, if you're playing it in like dragon-style decks and you're playing Spellslinger with it, there's a 2-mana enchantment that says whenever a dragon enters, it deals damage equal to the number of dragons you control.
Yep.
So you can randomly go like Opt, Serum Visions, whatever, make 7 of these things, and you've dealt 1, 2, 3, 4. You just keep going. Oh my god, this card is really sweet. This card's really, really sweet.
Yep, I'm so into it. All right, let's talk about some lands cards.
Oh god.
Yep. Cultivator Colossus, 4 and triple green for a plant beast. It is a star. We'll get to what the stars are in a second. It has trample. Oh, great. Cultivator Colossus's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Good.
It's a lot.
It's Multani.
Yeah.
It doesn't have reach, but when it enters the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. So this goes until you stop putting lands into play.
So what happens if your entire deck is mostly lands?
Well, then you just keep drawing lands and you keep putting them into play, and this thing gets really big, and you mill yourself out. That's unfortunate.
I see.
Notably, you can also just elect not to at some point, but yeah, like it. So automatically, this card has, if you have any land in hand when you play it, this card has the potential to just
keep going,
to replace itself and start a chain.
I'm a big fan of this card. Boy, am I going to... When I see it across the table and I'm sitting down to play Commander, I am going to be very, very terrified of this card.
I'm going to try and give this thing hexproof and kill my opponents with it. That's for sure. Speaking of... speaking of cards that care about lands, in the last block of Innistrad, we got a lovely frog called the Gitrog monster, and now we get another legendary frog.
It's a little itty bitty Gitrog monster, kind of.
Grolnok, the Omnivore, 2 green and a blue for a 3/3 legendary frog. Ribbit.
Frog.
When a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. I'm already sold.
Yeah.
Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. Okay, I'm a little less sold, but you may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with croak counters on them. Okay, I'm back on board.
This card is really sweet because you can randomly hit big dumb things that nobody can interact with anymore. And
it's like having another hand that no one can touch.
Exactly. Oh my god, they exist in the zone that most people can't interact with, and if you have big dumb things or combo pieces, oh man, I'm a big fan of this card. And I don't know why, but I just like that frogs are omnivores.
Yeah. Eat it up. All right. And then finally for land cards, we're going to talk about Dig Up. So this brings us to the cleave mechanic. So Dig Up is single green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Now, if you pay the cleave cost, which is 1 black, black, green, you remove the words that are in square brackets. So the new text would be, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
So the most relevant comparison I can think of is Traverse the Ovenwald, where if you're not delirious, you get a basic land. But if you are, you get a land or any creature.
Yep. Traverse was the same mana cost to get a basic, so it was literally the same card on the front face. If you had Delirium, which is 4 or more card types in graveyard, you could get any creature or land into your hand, but you had to show it. This is replacing that with a higher cost, but you get to Demonic Tutor.
Which is early game, if you're stuck on mana, yeah, it'd replace itself with a land. Late game, if you have nothing but mana, Demonic Tutor and Standard. I know we have cards that were similar, and like there's a few cards that are like 4 mana tutor, but this is
Diabolic Tutor. But yeah like I'm totally okay with this. The fact that there's 2 modes to this, I like modal cards because you can they have much more versatility. Yeah, I see this scene playing Standard and definitely in Commander.
Oh yeah, I think it's a little slow for Modern, but
yeah, the fail case on this is not worth playing in Modern. No. Lay of the Land already exists, and we don't even play that. So there you go. Howlpack Piper.
Oh god, I hate this card.
Yeah. So 3 and a green for a 2/2 human werewolf. Some of my favorite and least favorite words on a creature. This spell can't be countered.
Which is why I hate this card.
Whee! 1 and a green and tap it. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Period. If it's a wolf or a werewolf, untap Howlpack Piper. Activate only as a sorcery.
Okay, so here's what I'm terrified about, right? 2 mana, put anything you want into play. Why?
Yep. Notably, this card does have a backside, but it's a 4/4 werewolf that when it enters the battlefield or transforms, you look at the top 6, put a creature in your hand, put the rest in the bottom. That part's not as exciting as
the front half.
Put a creature into play for 2 mana. Oh, I'm in.
Do you remember a card?
It can't be countered. Why can't it be countered?
That's what I don't like about it. It's so insane where you can just randomly put, sure, you don't get the cast trigger, but you could put Eldrazi's into play.
Yep.
For 2 mana.
Uncounterable Elvish Piper. Yep, I'm here for this card. But also, I'm going to lose to this card.
Oh, yeah.
All right, moving on. Ovenwald Oddity.
Oh, I'm a fan of this one.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of this one.
So, if you like pushing the boundaries of the vanilla test, this is 2 green, so 4 mana for a beast. It's a 4/4. It has Trample and Haste.
And?
Already, that's fine. But for 5 green, you can transform it into Ovenwald Behemoth, which is an 8/8 with Trample and Haste, and other creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Trample and Haste.
You like Anthem effects with upsides?
Yep, I sure do. I am going to play this. I'm going to play the heck out of this in Commander in a lot of green decks and just run people over, and yeah, this is exactly what I want to do.
I'm going to be honest, I keep going back to this, but the art, why does this thing have a mouth on its stomach?
Because it's a horror.
God, ugh.
I feel like this is left over from when Emrakul was here. Yeah. Yep, I think that's what they're going for, but no thank you. This card's sweet.
Oh, right. I know. Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. Overcharged Amalgam. 2 blue for a 3/3 zombie horror. It has flash. It has flying. It has exploit. It is a zombie. When it exploits a creature, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability.
How do you feel about a stifle?
I like Stifle. I like Disallow a lot.
Mhm.
I like Counterspell, and this is a 4-mana 3/3 Flash Flyer.
Yeah.
At its base level.
Yeah.
Deal in.
It's good.
Also, fail case. It's just Disallow.
Yeah, that's the best part. Is someone goes to try to play. I keep going back to this, but like a big Ulamog trying to exile your stuff, you can just randomly disallow that trigger.
Also doesn't get hit by negate.
Does not, which is really, really good. Unfortunately, it can be stifled itself, but whatever.
Darn, yeah. You do have to, for the best case scenario, you do want to have another expendable creature, but you do what you can. Alrighty, Consuming Tide. 2 blue for a sorcery. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control. Return all other non-land permanents, or all non-land permanents not chosen this way to their owner's hand. Then you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. I want to talk about this card as the kind of card you want to play when you have one big thing that's better than everything else on the board. An Ulamog, for example, or one big idiot planeswalker, and you go, okay, I'm going to bounce everything except for one thing for each of my opponents, and then this one thing. And then I'm going to use this thing to get rid of whatever my opponents have, or I'm going to use another spell to get rid of one of my opponents have. I kind of like this for 4 mana.
It's really sweet. There's been a few cards that are similar to this, but for 4 mana, that's really, really strong. It kind of reminds me, I know it's nowhere near on the power level, but an overloaded Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah. Psych Rift is still better than this, but this is another blue board wipe that I look at. I'm like, I kind of am willing to play this one.
Oh, absolutely.
So, speaking of board wipes.
Oh, I love this one. I love this one so much.
By invitation only.
Oh, I love the name, too.
3 white for a sorcery, winning the award of best nickname in the set. That's already the name. Choose any number between 0 and 13. I will point out a rules thing. You can choose 0 or 13.
Yes. Each
player sacrifices that many creatures.
So, at its worst, it's a 5-mana edict where you get to keep your one big dumb thing, and you get rid of all their other nonsense. If you have a bunch of expendable creatures,
which is bad, but that's fine. The absolute fail case.
At its best, it's a 5-mana get rid of everything that Indestructible can't stop.
Noteworthy too. You choose the number when it resolves. So if your opponent does something tricky to make it, Teferi's Protection, so that their creatures all phase out, or flash in something that says I can't sacrifice creatures, or make a bunch of tokens so that they have way more than 13, you can just go, okay, I pick 0.
Yeah, and sure, you wasted the spell, but at the same time, you got cards out of their hand.
Yep.
Which is really good for you.
You made them use their resources. Totally fine. I love that there's finally a whiteboard wipe that makes people just sack stuff.
Yes, which is phenomenal. White needs all the help that it can get.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, God.
This is a control finisher for the ages. I love this card.
God.
So this is Hullbreaker Horror. 5 blue for Kraken Horror, 7/8 with Flash, and it can't be countered. All right.
I'm already in.
Yep. Sold. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. You don't have to choose any, but choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand from the stack. Or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand.
Why does it return spells?
Beats me. I am just now realizing that with non-land permanents, it doesn't say you don't control.
Yeah.
So you can bounce your own creatures and put it back. I want to bounce a Venser with this.
Yeah, oh God.
And then just bounce, and then start bouncing their lands.
And then keep bouncing their... Oh, that's so gross.
Okay, figured it out. This is going to be my new control finisher, and I'm so in for this. Boy, people are going to hate me.
It's a sweet card, especially if their opponent's going to be like, hey, here's this Expropriate. That's nice. Somebody do it again next turn.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Also, sweet art. Go check out the art if you haven't seen it. All right. I want to talk about Hopeful Initiate. I just think this card is kind of neat and gives a neat effect on a creature. Hopeful Initiate is a single white for a 1/2 human warlock. As training, so whenever it attacks with another creature with greater power, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and then 2 and a white, remove 2 1/1 counters from this creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment.
This card is sweet.
Reusable white weenie removal of artifacts and enchantments.
Yeah, no, this card is sweet, especially because it has 1 power. 90% of the time, it's going to attack with something that's bigger than it. So it's just going to get more and more counters.
Honestly, if this had been a 1-mana 1/1, I would have been okay with it, but it's a 1/2.
Which
is just upside.
Also, that ability, you don't have to tap it. If it randomly has 30 counters and your opponent's played a bunch of artifacts, you just start paying mana to remove
Yep.
everything.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
So okay with this. Yeah, this card's sweet. Valderran Bloodcaster. This card's really cool.
Okay.
So this is 1 and a black for a 2/1 vampire wizard with flying. 2 mana, 2 power flyer. Already okay. Whenever it or another non-token creature you control dies, create a blood token, which is an artifact with 1 tap, discard a card, sack this artifact, draw a card. Whenever you create a blood token, if you control 5 or more blood tokens, transform it, and it turns into Bloodbat Summoner, which is a vampire wizard as well.
Vampire wizard.
But it's a 3/3 with flying. In the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target blood token you control becomes a 2/2 bat creature with flying and haste in addition to its other types.
So this card is really sweet. I think it's kind of cool because there's a lot of cards in this format that give you blood tokens, and this is a way to make use out of them. You can turn them into creatures if you don't want to. If you already have all the cards you want and you don't want to rummage anymore, you can just make creatures out of your blood tokens.
I think this would be great in like an aristocrat style strategy where you are sacrificing your own creatures. This is going to be great in Marin. You eventually flip this over and go, okay, now these bloods are going to become these 2/2 bats and hit my opponent in the air. Flying and haste.
Pretty sweet. It's
Totally
really
okay.
sweet. This next card I'm actually really excited about.
Yeah, this is Johnny's Pridemate got a little bit of an upgrade.
It did.
Voice of the Blessed is double white for a 2/2 Spirit Cleric. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. So the Johnny's Pridemate text. Totally okay. As long as it has 4 or more +1/+1 counters, it has Flying and Vigilance. It's already an upgrade. As long as it has 10 or more counters, it has Indestructible.
That's really, really good. So honestly, if people are playing a Johnny's Pridemate, they don't have any flex cards, take them out, put this in its place.
Yep. This is just better.
It's just strictly better.
I am so okay with this card. Modern deck that we haven't really seen in a little bit, but
Soul Sisters.
I was gonna say Soul Sisters or Martyr Proc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't seen those in quite a while.
If you can, like, obviously this takes some setup, but if you gain 2 iterations of life, this gets out of bolt range. If you gain 5 iterations of life, this gets out of Unholy Heat range, and eventually it's just indestructible and
hard to get
smacking your opponent for 10 or more, or for 12 or more.
In Modern?
With Flying and Vigilance,
In Modern, what gets rid of Indestructible?
Path to Exile, which nobody plays.
Yeah.
I mean, Prismatic Ending, but
Sure, there are, but like,
probably should have gotten rid of it a long time ago if you play Prismatic Ending.
I agree.
So I want to play this in Karlov as well.
Oh,
in Commander.
yes.
Speaking of cards for Karlov, Markov Purifier is
this card's sweet.
1, a white, and a black. It's a vampire cleric, 2/3 with lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card.
So that's the thing, is this card is really sweet because it naturally has lifelink. So at worst, you just pay 3 mana to attack with this thing, gain 2 life, and draw a card.
Yep.
On an uncommon.
Yep.
That's not bad.
Nope.
That's not bad at all.
I like Dawn of Hope, and putting it on a body, even if you don't get the token generation, is totally fine with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to play the heck out of this card. Totally fine. All right. This is another one I'm kind of interested by. It's Lantern Flare. Okay. This is 1 and a white for an instant. It has Cleave for X, a red and a white. So if you just pay 1 and a white, it's deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control. If you pay the Cleave cost, X is whatever you put into X.
Yes.
I like the flexibility here.
I do too.
I like that it deals with a creature or a planeswalker, and I like that you gain a bunch of life.
I do too, because it's such a sweet card, especially if you're in Boros. Boros needs more help than it can. It's Boros. You don't have much options.
Yep. This is one of White's better removal spells for planeswalkers too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Moving on to Welcoming Vampire. We'll go quick with this one.
Yeah.
2 and a white, 2/3 flying vampire. Whenever one or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn.
So that's the one thing, is once per turn, but still, White gets card draw.
Yeah. White gets card draw for weenies, and I would put this in a white weenies deck.
Yeah.
All right. Olivia Crimson Bride.
Oh, this card is actually really cool. I'm kind of excited about this one.
4 black red, so 6 mana, admittedly, for a legendary vampire noble. She's a 3/4 with flying and haste.
Relevant.
Whenever she attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Any creature card. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire. Exile this creature. Little bit of a downside, but Reanimate any creature. She does it immediately. You don't have to wait a turn. It's not on your upkeep or something like that. Yeah, and it comes in tapped and attacking.
It comes in tapped and attacking, which is really, really powerful. It kind of reminds me of Kaalia.
Yeah.
Kaalia of the Vast.
Yeah, this is just like Kaalia, but from your graveyard instead.
It's kind of sweet. It's
dear.
Sweet. It's in the colors of Kaalia, so it just fits right in.
And this is a pretty relevant body, even if you're paying 6 mana for it.
Yeah, no,
totally on board. Okay. Torrens, Fist of Angels. Fist of the Angels.
Fist of the Angels.
Yep. 1 green-white for a 2/2 legendary human cleric, also with training. And whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training.
You're in green-white. You're going to be casting
creature spells.
Yep. I like this card. I really do, especially since they all have training, so they get bigger and bigger.
Yep. I might have found potentially a new commander for green-white humans in Commander. I was going to play Catilda, but this
seems really good.
Yep, I just want a bunch of 1/1s. That's totally fine. Catilda can make them all tap for mana later. Totally fine. All right, we got a couple artifacts. Dollhouse of Horrors, 5 mana artifact, 1 in tap. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a 0/0 construct artifact in addition to its other types, and gets +1/+1 for each construct you control.
This card is really sweet.
Not each other construct, each construct.
Each construct. This card is actually super sweet. I like it because you can hit things that, if your deck can't interact with the graveyard, this is your way of interacting with the graveyard. Does it say your graveyard?
Yeah, it says your graveyard, but it does give them haste. I forgot to mention that. Activate only as a sorcery, whatever.
But if you're getting haste, you're already set.
Yep. Are there cards that untap artifacts in Magic?
No,
think of any.
Of course not.
No, Voltaic Key and there's
Candelabra.
Yeah. That untaps lands, but still.
Oh, you're right. It is lands.
No, you untap the Candelabra so you can untap the lands.
See, there you go.
That's what you want to be doing. I think this is cool. I think it's a commander card, really, but it's still pretty darn cool.
This one I'm really excited about.
Investigator's Journal.
Yeah.
Do you want to read this one for us?
Sure. So Investigator's Journal enters the battlefield with a number of
suspect counters.
Suspect counters, kind of interesting.
Equal to the greatest number of creatures a player controls.
And then you can remove a counter from Investigator's Journal to draw a card, or sacrifice it to just draw a card. So it is also an artifact clue, which is of note, which is why you can draw a card.
Because you can pay 2 and sack it to draw a card.
Mono white has real card draw.
Yeah, this is actually very, very okay.
This card was going to see play in Commander. It's definitely going to see play in Standard because it's just powerful enough to see play as it is.
I honestly see this as replacing Mind Maze Tome in like some Eldrazi-tron lists.
Yeah, you're right. Because Karn hits it. Karn, even if it goes into exile, Karn can still get it back.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this card is sweet.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Give white more of these cards. Or honestly, just give us more of these cards as artifacts. That's totally fine. Lantern of the Lost, I briefly want to talk about.
Yeah.
1 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. 1 and tap and exile it. Exile all cards from all graveyards, then draw a card. The reason I want to talk about this is comparing it to Soul Guide Lantern, which has seen a bunch of play in Modern lately, as in Urza's Saga target.
Or with Lurrus even.
This one is really close. So this one you don't get with Lurrus, which you can do with the Soul Guide Lantern. But for decks that aren't playing Lurrus as a companion, this is another alternative. This hits all graveyards, draws you a card as the one mode that it has.
Correct.
Whereas Soul Guide Lantern you have to pick between. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting alternative.
I don't disagree. I think people will try it out, see if what's better.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting.
If you're playing Lurrus, though, play Soul Guide Lantern.
Yes,
That's all
absolutely.
And then our last artifact, Boarded Window, 3 mana artifact. Creatures attacking you get -1/-0, but at the beginning of each end step, if you were dealt 4 or more damage this turn, exile Boarded Window.
It's interesting. For 3 mana, we kind of briefly mentioned a little bit before we got started, is Karn gets to get this.
Yeah.
You have better options, but if people, if we mentioned like our first episode, if the Kiki combo or Splinter Twin comes back, it does stop Pestermite.
Not Pestermite, but Deceiver Exarch.
Deceiver Exarch.
Pestermite has 2 power, but Deceiver Exarch has 1 power, and the Felidar Guardian,
that one still exists.
Yep, and 1 power. So if you get this into play, it's like, okay, you have 100 million cats that
I will take 0.
If they attack me, they have 0 power.
Yeah.
Yippee.
Which is pretty sweet.
Okay. Few more cards left, just the commander cards. The one legendary creature I wanted to talk about here is Umbrous Fear Manifest, because I want to play this card. So it's 3 a blue and a black for a 1/1, which doesn't sound that great. It's a Nightmare Horror, though. It gets +1/+1 for each card your opponents own in exile, and whenever it or another Nightmare or Horror enters the battlefield under your control, target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a land card.
Which is really sick, especially because it gets bigger for each card.
Yep.
Oh man, that's really sweet.
I just like this as a big idiot that gets bigger over time and eventually hits your opponents for a lot. I just want to give it unblockable and hexproof and go to town.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What do you got next for us here?
This is going to be a pet card of mine for sure. Predator's Hour. 1 and a black sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library face down. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell.
Oh, so all your creatures get Gonti.
Yep. And menace.
That's gross.
Yep.
Ew.
This card's sweet. Play it. Hit your opponents and steal their stuff. We've been getting more of this effect lately, and I'm so into it.
Oh, I kind of like how black is doing this, red is doing the exile things out of your... It's pretty sweet. It's really, really cool.
Yep.
I kind of like just having 30 things in play and just randomly killing your opponent with a bunch of 1/1s that have menace.
Yep.
It's
Maybe
cool.
give them double strike.
Oh, God.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah, no thank you to that. Sudden Salvation. 2 and white for an instant. Choose up to 3 target permanent cards in graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. You draw a card for each opponent who controls 1 or more of those permanents. The reason I like this is because it's very similar to Second Sunrise or Faithless Looting or Brought Back. Not Faithless Looting, Faith's Reward. There it is.
Yes. I believe so, man.
Which Second Sunrise and Faith's Reward return all permanents put into graveyards back to the battlefield. Put into graveyards this turn back to the battlefield. Brought Back brings back 2. I don't know. I just think having more copies of this card is kind of cool. This is probably only going to see play in Commander because it won't be it's not legal in Modern.
No.
But
it's still a sweet card. I think people will definitely play it in some certain decks where it just kind of wants to put dumb things that just pretty put back there.
I might try it in some sort of like white-based Reanimator deck.
Why not?
But Storm of Souls.
Oh, this card is actually
second to last card. 4 white for a sorcery. Return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Period. I wish it stopped there. It doesn't, but I'm okay with it because of that sentence. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit with flying in addition to their other types, and exile Storm of Souls. This just reanimates your whole graveyard. Okay.
Yeah, sure they're 1/1s, but at the same time, it's still really, really good. You get to 6 mana, put everything you've put in there back into play, and it doesn't say they lose all abilities.
Nope. They just change their power and toughness, gain a creature type, and gain flying.
Yeah. And if some of them don't have flying, that could just be an upside.
Yep. I'm totally okay with this.
It's a sweet card.
Last card, just because I think it's cool and I want to play it in control decks, is Haunted Library.
Oh, I really like this card. I really like this card.
1 and a white enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. That's it.
How do you feel about wrathing the board and then breaking parity by paying a bunch of mana?
The problem with Wrath of God has always been that your opponents get to put creatures back into play first. Not anymore.
Yeah, no, this is how you break parity.
Yep.
This card is really sweet. I like just blowing up everything and you making a bunch of creatures.
It's so cheap. It's 2 mana.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's a really, really cool card.
Give me more of these cards. All right.
But with that being said, we're pretty much done with the main segment.
Yeah.
Let's move into our end segment, which is Scoop Speed.
Scoop Speed, where we tell cringy or fun or bad beats magic stories. All right, I'm up this week, and let's talk about my favorite card in all of Magic the Gathering, Tamiyo Field Researcher. If you don't know what this Planeswalker is, it's 1 in Bant, a white, a blue, and a green, for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker, +1, choose up to 2 target creatures until your next turn. Whenever they deal combat damage, you draw a card. -2, tap up to 2 target non-land permanents. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step.
What does the ult do?
-7, draw 3 cards.
And?
You get an emblem with, you may cast cards from your hand without paying their mana cost.
Oh, Omniscience nobody can interact with. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, obviously that's why it's my favorite card. So, I was playing 4-color Super Friends, Atraxa Super Friends in Commander. And I had a Tamiyo that I had gotten up to, I want to say 10 loyalty or something like that. But I couldn't ult it this turn, so I'm like, okay, I'll ult it next turn. I don't have a lot of blockers. I'm pretty sure I just have Atraxa. And so one of my opponents goes, hey, we need to attack that thing so it does not have at least 7 loyalty. And everybody goes, okay, we're going to do that. So the next player goes, attacks my Tamiyo. I block one of the creatures. Tamiyo takes a couple damage, goes down to 8. Next player, the person who brought this up, has about 5 or 6 creatures in play, proceeds to tap a bunch of green mana, put more elves into play, and then says go. And everybody stops for a sec.
I see.
The guy kind of looks around like, what's everybody waiting for? And next person go, okay, I'm going to play some things. I'm going to attack even though I can't get through. I'm like, yeah, I block, and Tamiyo's still at 8. And then the original guy goes, oh, I messed up. I told everyone to attack Tamiyo, and I didn't do it with my 5 creatures when JC has 1 blocker.
I'm pretty sure they felt had the oh crap moment.
Well, I got Omniscience the next turn, and I drew 3 Planeswalkers.
Ooh.
I had a doubling season in play, and yeah, Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
Did you still have friends afterwards?
That's questionable, but no, most of them I'm still friends with to this day. But
most. Wait a minute.
I lost one. We lost somebody. Anyway. That's going to wrap it up for episode 3. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/themanavault, and check out our Modern Meta Matchups videos. This podcast will be up on YouTube as well. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. Check out our Patreon. If you're going to be at MTG Vegas, look for Arven and Austin and Ian. And with that,
we're pretty much all set here. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Arven.
I've been JC, and we'll see you next time.